Hey everyone, welcome back to ABA Chapter Chat. We're doing another deep dive today, and this time it's Chapter 11.
That's right.
From Behavior Analysis for Lasting Change. And we're talking reinforcement.
Yeah, putting it into action, making it work for you.
I like it.
In real-world situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this chapter is really like a toolbox for anyone using ABA.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a
like a seasoned pro
or just starting out.
Yeah.
We're talking about making those positive changes stick, and that's exciting stuff.
That is exciting stuff. And you know what I like about this chapter is it actually starts with like a scenario.
It does.
And it's this guy named Mark who is a supervisor, and he's struggling with his employees not meeting deadlines.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they knew what our problems were.
They knew our
pain
pain points.
Exactly. But before we get to helping Mark out with this problem, they talk about something super important.
Right.
Informed consent. Informed consent is that solid ground.
Yeah.
It means everyone involved, clients, families, even staff, understands what's happening and has a chance to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
The book really emphasizes the BICB guidelines here, making sure everyone is on the same page.
Which makes total sense.
Absolutely.
You don't want to start anything without, everyone feeling comfortable and informed.
Exactly.
But let's get to the good stuff.
All right.
The techniques.
Yeah.
One that really caught my eye was teaching delayed gratification.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting that cookie and that Adobe.
Right.
Instead of waiting for dinner.
It's the classic battle between want it now and better later.
Yes.
The chapter uses a great example of a kid struggling to finish his homework because playing video games is just so tempting.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Research shows that even preschoolers can learn to delay gratification.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's amazing.
Tiny humans learning to wait for a better reward.
It makes you wonder what we could all achieve with a little more patience.
Right.
Right. So how do we actually teach this superpower of delayed gratification?
Well, one technique the book suggests is gradually increasing the delay. Let's say you're trying to get a child to wait for a snack.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start by making them wait an hour.
Right.
You might start with 5 minutes. Then 10, and so on.
Got it.
It's like training wheels for patience.
Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah.
But what about like in a work setting?
Yeah.
Like with Mark and his deadline dilemma, how could delayed gratification help there?
Well, think about it this way. Could Mark encourage his employees to prioritize a less enjoyable task? Knowing that finishing it leads to a more desirable reward later.
Interesting.
Maybe completing a tedious report on time means they get to tackle a more creative project next. It's all about framing the delayed reward as something they genuinely value.
That's a really clever way to apply it.
Yeah.
So it's not just about waiting.
Right.
It's about connecting the wait to something truly worthwhile.
Exactly.
This chapter is full of these aha moments.
It is.
Another one that stood out to me was labeled praise.
Oh, yeah.
We all love good job.
Uh-huh.
But let's face it, it's kind of like a participation trophy.
Right. Right.
Labeled praise is all about being specific.
Yes.
Instead of just a generic good job, you might say, wow, you organized your desk so neatly. That's going to make finding things so much easier.
Exactly.
So it's like you're not just acknowledging the action, you're actually highlighting why it's important.
Right.
That makes so much more sense.
And it's not just about clarity for the person receiving the praise. It also helps you, as the one given the praise, be more mindful of what behaviors you're actually reinforcing.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, on to another key concept. Contextual factors.
Yes.
The book uses this example of a child who receives an allowance regardless of whether they've done their chores.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how context can make or break reinforcement. In that scenario, why would the child bother with chores if the reward comes anyway?
Yeah.
There's no connection between the action and the consequence.
Right.
It highlights how crucial it is to make sure reinforcement is contingent upon the desired behavior.
Right, like cause and effect.
Exactly.
If the reward is a given, it loses its power to motivate.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how we set up reward systems in general.
Yes.
Whether it's for kids or employees or even ourselves.
Absolutely.
Speaking of rewards, I found the discussion on the magnitude and quantity of reinforcers super interesting.
Yeah.
Like, how much do you want it?
Right, how much do you want it?
Right.
Research shows that people will work harder for longer periods if they perceive the reward as highly valuable.
Got it.
It's about finding those things that truly motivate individuals, not just offering generic incentives. Think of it like this. Are you going to work harder for a piece of candy or for an hour of playtime with your friends? It depends on what you value more.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like customizing the reward to the individual's preferences.
Exactly.
But what happens when even the most awesome reward starts to lose its shine?
Yeah.
The chapter mentions habituation, adaptation, and satiation.
Yes.
And frankly, those sound a bit intimidating.
A little bit.
Can you break those down for us?
They're not as complicated as they sound.
Right.
Let's start with habituation.
Okay.
Think about the first time you heard a loud siren. You probably jumped right.
Probably.
But hear that same siren over and over, and eventually you barely even notice.
Yeah.
That's habituation.
Okay.
Your response decreases over time.
Got it. What about adaptation?
Adaptation is similar, but it's about adjusting to something constant.
Okay.
Ever walked into a room with a strong smell like someone's been baking cookies?
Mm-hmm.
At first, it's all you can smell, but after a while, you don't even notice it anymore. You've adapted.
I get that. Now, what about satiation?
Satiation is like when you eat too much of your favorite food.
Okay.
At first, it's delicious, but after a while, you're just stuffed and can't eat another bite.
Yeah.
You've reached your limit.
I've definitely been there.
We all have.
So how do we prevent these things from happening when we're trying to use reinforcement effectively?
Right.
It seems like a real balancing act.
Variety is key.
Okay.
Just like you wouldn't want to eat pizza every day.
True.
You don't want to offer the same reward over and over again.
Okay.
Keep things fresh.
Okay.
Plus, make sure you're using rewards that are genuinely valuable to the individual and be mindful of the frequency. Even good things can lose their appeal if we overdo it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
It's not just about picking a reward and sticking with it. It's about being dynamic and responsive to the individual's needs and preferences.
Absolutely.
This chapter is packed with so much practical information.
It really is.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What about when the effort to get the reward is just too much? The chapter talks about cost versus reward, and that feels super relatable.
It absolutely is. Think about it. Are you more likely to tackle a mountain of laundry if you know there's a relaxing bubble bath waiting for you? Probably.
Totally. It's like weighing the effort against the payoff. And I could see how this plays out in the workplace, too. No one's going to be thrilled about working late if the reward feels too small or insignificant.
Exactly. The book actually highlights research that shows people are much more willing to put in the work for a reward they really value, especially for tasks that are challenging but achievable. It's about striking that balance, making the reward feel worthwhile.
This makes me think about how important it is to involve the individual when choosing rewards. Can't just assume you know what's going to motivate them.
That's where incorporating choice comes in. The chapter talks about this awesome technique called the treasure box, where individuals can actually choose a reinforcer from a collection of appealing items. It's like a personalized reward menu.
I love that. It takes the guesswork out of it and makes it so much more engaging for the person involved. Okay, so we've got the right reward now. How do we make sure it's delivered in a way that actually shapes the behavior we're aiming for? The chapter spends a lot of time on contingent reinforcement, and that seems like a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Contingent reinforcement is all about timing, making sure the reward happens right after the desired behavior. It's like teaching a dog to sit. You wouldn't give the treat before they sit or 5 minutes later. The connection needs to be clear and immediate.
It's like saying, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for, but what happens when you accidentally reinforce a behavior you don't want? I feel like we've all done that at some point.
It happens, but that's where understanding the function of the behavior comes in. Let's say a child is acting out in class. Are they seeking attention, trying to escape a difficult task, or is something else going on? If you don't know why they're doing it, you might accidentally reinforce the very behavior you're trying to decrease.
That makes so much sense. It's like treating the symptom without addressing the underlying cause. So observation and really understanding the individual's motivations are key.
Absolutely. It's like detective work, figuring out what's driving the behavior and then responding in a way that supports positive change.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me. Now, I'm curious about behavioral contracts. How do they fit into this whole reinforcement picture?
Think of a behavioral contract, like a roadmap for everyone involved. It outlines the specific behaviors you're targeting, the rewards that will be earned, and any consequences for not meeting the expectations. It's about clarity and accountability.
So it's like putting it all in right? No room for misunderstandings. But what happens when there are competing contingencies at play? Like when a student is more interested in getting laughs from their classmates than earning praise from the teacher.
Competing contingencies. That's where things get tricky. It's like a tug-of-war with different forces pulling the individual in different directions. The key here is to make the reinforcement for the desired behavior more powerful and minimize the reinforcement for the undesired behavior. You want to tip the scales in favor of those positive choices.
Okay, so it's about understanding those competing forces and then strategically manipulating the environment to make the good stuff more appealing. I'm starting to feel like a master manipulator. But in a good way, of course.
It's not about manipulation. It's about setting the stage for success. It's about creating an environment where positive choices naturally lead to positive outcomes.
Okay, I like that. It's about empowerment, not control. We've talked about how to choose the right rewards, how to deliver them effectively, and how to navigate those tricky competing contingencies. But what about when we're trying to fade out external rewards? How do we help individuals become more self-sufficient?
That's where self-management comes in. And it's not just some fancy term. It's about giving individuals the tools to become their own cheerleaders, coaches, and accountability partners.
Wait, so it's like teaching them to reinforce themselves? Is that even possible?
It totally is. Think about it. We all do this to some extent already. Maybe you treat yourself to a movie after a long week or allow yourself an extra hour of sleep after crushing a workout. It's about recognizing your own accomplishments and celebrating those wins.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually teach someone to do that?
Self-management involves 3 key components: self-monitor and self-evaluation and self-reinforcement. First, you have to be aware of your own behavior. What are you doing, when, and why? Then you evaluate how well you're doing. Are you meeting your goals? And finally, you give yourself those well-deserved pats on the back, or maybe something a little more tangible, when you succeed.
So it's like taking all those reinforcement principles we've been talking about and turning them inward. That's pretty empowering. But I imagine it takes some practice and guidance to get good at it.
You're absolutely right. And that's where we as ABA practitioners come in. We can teach individuals how to set realistic goals, track their progress, and choose rewards that truly motivate them. It's like giving them a toolkit for success.
I'm loving this. It's like we're not just changing behaviors, we're helping people develop skills that will serve them for a lifetime. This chapter is seriously blowing my mind. We've covered so much ground already, from choosing the right rewards to understanding those tricky competing contingencies, and now this whole self-management thing.
Yes.
And I gotta say, my brain is buzzing with all these ideas.
It's a great chapter, isn't it?
It's a fantastic chapter. It's like a treasure chest of practical tips, and I'm ready to put them into action.
I love it.
So where do we even begin?
Well, let's loop back to informed consent for a sec. We touched on it earlier, but it's so important it deserves another look.
Okay.
The chapter really reminds us that informed consent isn't just like a one-time thing.
Gotcha.
It's an ongoing conversation.
So it's not just about getting that initial signature.
Right.
It's about making sure everyone's still comfortable.
Yes.
And informed throughout the whole process.
Exactly. It's about respecting autonomy.
Okay.
And making sure everyone feels like an active participant.
I like that.
Imagine you're working with a client and their preferences change, or a new challenge pops up.
Okay.
You wouldn't just keep plowing ahead with the original plan, would you?
No, definitely not. It's like a dance.
It is.
You got to adapt and move together.
Yes, you do.
But let's be honest, even with the best intentions, we all make mistakes sometimes.
We do.
What happens when we accidentally reinforce something we were trying to decrease?
It happens.
Like, is all hope lost at that point?
No, not at all. The key is to catch it early.
Okay.
And adjust your approach.
Right.
Remember that detective work we talked about?
I do.
Understanding the function of the behavior is crucial here.
Okay.
Once you know why the behavior is happening, you can start to address the root cause.
It makes me think about the importance of data collection.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't really know if your strategies are working.
Right.
If you're not tracking progress, right?
Data is our superpower.
Yes.
It helps us see what's working, what's not, and when it's time to switch things up.
It's like having a GPS for behavior change.
I like that.
You can see where you're going, adjust your route if needed, and celebrate those milestones along the way.
Yeah.
Speaking of celebrating,
Yeah.
one of the things that really stood out to me in this chapter was individualization.
Absolutely.
Like cookie-cutter approaches just don't cut it in ABA.
No, they don't.
What works for one person may not work for another.
Right. Everyone's different.
Everyone is different, and this chapter really stresses that, we need to consider things like cultural background, personal preferences, even past experiences with reinforcement.
It's about meeting the individual where they're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like we're really getting to know the person
Yes.
and tailoring our approach accordingly.
100%.
Which makes so much sense. But with all these factors to consider, it can feel a little overwhelming.
It can.
Like, how do we even begin to personalize these strategies?
Right. Well, a good starting point is to involve the individual as much as possible.
Okay.
Ask them what they enjoy, what motivates them, what they'd like to work towards.
Got it.
Remember that treasure box idea?
I do.
That's a fantastic way to give individuals a sense of ownership and control over their own reinforcement.
I love that. It's like we're not just shaping behaviors. We're empowering individuals to take charge of their own growth.
Exactly.
And that is so powerful.
It is.
This chapter has been such an eye-opener.
I'm glad to hear it.
As we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on this whole reinforcement thing.
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it all comes down to being intentional.
Okay.
Reinforcement isn't just about handing out rewards. It's about understanding the principles of behavior change.
Okay.
And using them strategically to help individuals reach their full potential.
I love that. It's about using reinforcement as a tool for positive change and empowerment. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay.
How can you use these principles of reinforcement
to
make a positive difference in your own life or the lives of those around you?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
Share your experiences with us on social media.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of reinforcement, and we will catch you next time on ABA Chapter Chat.